Hey, I'm Rob Gantt with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I'm in Summerville today with my partner, Roger Lee of the Summerville Journal-Scene. Raj, we have reached week 8 of the high school football season. That's actually the start of the playoffs. We have a couple of teams playing some +1 games as well. Before we get started, though, we always have to recognize our sponsor, Tony Pope State Farm. Make sure you call Tony Pope State Farm for car, home, life, and small business insurance. Speaking of insurance, the Green Wave could use some help rolling down the Dutch Fork this Friday. Tell us about that game, and then just kind of tell us what's going on with Fort Dorchester and Ashley Ridge.
Yeah, Summerville's got the #1 team in the state this week in the first round of the playoffs. Dutch Fork.
4-time defending champion.
4-time defending champion.
To be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
That's right. Now, I hear they're not as strong as they've been in years past. You know, they lost their quarterback who was so good. But the quarterback they have is Clemson bound. So, he must not be too bad.
I'll also point out that Summerville also lost to another Clemson-bound quarterback this year. You know who that was?
Who was that?
Josh Davis, Stratford, Clemson baseball commitment.
Oh, okay, all right.
So the Green Wave have a chance to rebound from that loss to a Clemson baseball player.
Okay, all right.
Okay, go ahead.
Dutch Fork is coming off a 35-7 win over South Point on October 30th, so they've had extra time to prepare for this game and heal a little bit. The Silver Foxes have the strong quarterback, and running back Marcus Taylor is having a strong year. They've outscored their opponents 269 to 39 points this season.
Is that good?
That's pretty good. Not bad. They're undefeated.
All right.
Summerville is 4-3, coming off a 30-27 overtime loss to Goose Creek that you'll be talking about a little bit and coming up. In that game, though, Collin had a big night for the Green Wave, rushing for 85 yards and a TD. He also had 4 receptions for 70 yards. Gantt carried 18 times for 95 yards and 2 TDs and made a reception. And kicker Gage Lewis hit field goals of 38 and 32 yards. So, the Green Wave have the different parts you need. I would say, I don't know what much about the other teams that Dutch Fork has played, but I'm guessing that the Summerville defense is going to be the toughest defense Dutch Fork has faced so far.
Maybe the question I have really is also for Goose Creek when I talk about them is, and we talked about it last week, you get in these emotional games, it goes into OT, you lose at the horn or you lose on a field goal. If you're Summerville, do you worry about the toll that took emotionally on the Green Wave to get ready? And I know the coach will say, hey, if you need help getting ready for this, you need to find something else to do. But, well, that sounds good and all, but in reality, they do have to come back from an emotional loss. Are you worried about that?
I'm not worried about that because I've always thought my team seemed to take that personal and play better the week after a tough loss. Now, do they think Dutch Fork is beatable? That worries me because they faced Dutch Fork in the playoffs a couple of times the last few years. They've seen what Dutch Fork has done to other low country teams.
Definitely.
So,
including,
are they in their head? Maybe.
I think Dutch Fork's in everybody's head, but I'll say this. Clemson was in everybody's head until they went to South Bend on Saturday. So, hey.
I was trying to be gracious and not mention that Notre Dame game, but since you brought it up,
teams that aren't as good sometimes can rise above if they play hard. And was that Clear Eyes, Full Hearts Can't Lose?
That's right. Yeah.
Friday Night Lights TV show. Y'all need to watch that if you haven't. Okay, move on.
All right. Also in our area, hosting a playoff game is Fort Dorchester. They're 7-0. Facing River Bluff, which is 3-1. You go, wow, 3-1. Are they even playing football this year? Well, if you look at their schedule, they played some really good teams. Their only loss is to Dutch Fork. They have multiple weapons. Running back Riley Myers is kind of their go-to guy. He can just rush up the yards there. They're coming off a 35-10 win over Lexington. Coach LaPrade tells me they got good size at River Bluff, and he thinks this is going to be the toughest first-round playoff game his team has faced in a while.
Yeah, and I'll actually tell you this about River Bluff. They have a history of springing some surprises. I'll never forget I'm going to say it was probably 2013. They came down here when Goose Creek was number 1 seed in the state. River Bluff was the last team to get in the playoffs, the number 16 seed. And River Bluff upset the Gators. And so I've always envisioned River Bluff as a team that can just come down here and shock the world. And 3-1 with the only loss to Dutch Fork. I mean, you almost got to forgive them for that.
Yeah. So maybe they'll be kind of like Dutch Fork. Maybe they'll be a little bit more rested than Fort Dorchester because they haven't played so much. We'll see. But Fort Dorchester obviously having a fabulous year. If I didn't mention it, they're 7-0, coming off a 57-32 win at Berkeley that you'll talk about in a little bit.
Definitely.
Quarterback Zoltan Osborne had 327 passing yards for 4 TDs. Dwayne Wright rushed for 146 yards and 3 TDs. Keith Desashore, 168 receiving yards. O.J. Washington had a couple touchdowns along with Desashore. Lineman D.J. Watson, 8 tackles and 2 for a loss. And the second tier of that Fort defense also came through. A bunch of players with like 7 or 6 tackles each. That Fort defense isn't as stout as it was last year, but they're doing the job. They're getting the job done.
Did you need me to help you out with those names? Devon Geddes, Jayden Gardner, and Justin McElveen. And I had to say that because I know Justin's parents, Holly and Thomas,
right.
exceptional people. So I had to make sure I got him in there. And also I wanted to steal some of your thunder.
Well, I was just trying to keep it short. I felt like I was going on a little bit too long. But hats off to those guys. And you can always read more about those guys in the Journal Scene print edition if you want to.
Okay. All right. What's up?
The other thing we have going on in my area is the battle of the teams who won a second win of the season. They got Ashley Ridge hosting Conway. Just today, they were going to play that game on Thursday night, so more people might come out and see it. But just today, because of the tropical storm, they decided to move it back to Friday, so they'll be playing Friday night at 7:30. Conway is a team that made the playoffs last season. I think they placed second in the region last year.
Yeah, I mean historically they've been pretty good. I mean, with a mascot like the Tigers, that can happen from time to time. You can be real good, but not this year. Not this year.
And I don't
They're
think
more like the Gamecocks.
And I don't think Ashley Ridge is going to look anything like the Irish did this weekend either. So those Tigers might have a little bit easier time.
Hey, I know all the guys over there calling plays and coaching over there. Ashley Ridge is going to be ready for this. I mean, it's at Ashley Ridge, right?
It is at Ashley Ridge.
Man, those guys are going to try to go out in a blaze of glory.
I think so. They like to. The games I've went to see them this year, they haven't took as many chances as some years in the past. So I could see them just like, don't get me wrong, they're not conservative. They throw in some long shots and they do a little trickeration. But I'm looking for them to kind of pull out all the stops for this one, just to let the guys have some fun. It's some of these seniors, their last game.
What I really need to know is trickeration actually in the dictionary?
If I said it, it must be.
At fine Georgia Southern education.
That's right.
Okay. Picking winners on those games. I'll go with the Fort to beat River Bluff. I'll go with. How do you go against Dutch Fork? And then I'm going with the Foxes, who are going to outfox the Tigers and get a win this week. How about you?
Just ditto. Yeah, I think you can't pick against a team that's undefeated this late in the season. Not ruling out the upset from Summerville. Prove me wrong. Hey,
that would be cool though.
Well, the good thing about that is, all these teams in the playoffs are good. But now you talk about momentum. If they were to beat Dutch Fork in the first round, they would probably have a little bit of an easier second round game than they're used to, even though there are fewer teams in the playoffs. I would think and plus with all that momentum, then they're only 2 games away from playing for the championship. So once a team can see the championship out there and they can go, hey, we were this close to beating Fort Dorchester, we were this close to beating Goose Creek. Who knows, man? If they can get past the Silver Foxes, it could get interesting.
Yeah, the cameraman over here is telling you to get on with it.
Yeah, well, okay.
Just
wanted to mention some Ashley Ridge highlights coming off a 13-10 loss to Cane Bay. Hats off to Cane Bay. They executed really well and limited mistakes. But, that was a game that Ashley Ridge could have won. Connor Black, another big night, 120 yards passing and a TD. Will McCune hit a 29-yard field goal. Really, the difference in that game was Ashley Ridge fumbled the ball inside their 5-yard line. Ball rolled out of the end zone. Possession went over to Cane Bay, and Cane Bay marched upfield and scored a touchdown.
Yeah, those two teams. When they play, Cane Bay and Ashley Ridge, just go to the game because it's going down to the wire like every time.
Defensive side of the ball, linebackers led the way. Caden DeBose had 10 tackles. TJ Wilson, 9 tackles. I'll let you mention the highlights for Cane Bay, but there were definitely some guys who stood out for Cane Bay in that game. And along those lines, I'll turn it over to you, and you can talk about that game or some of the other games you have coming up in your area.
All right. Did you get it all out?
I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Did
I mention the Clemson Notre Dame?
You did. Well, I mean, we should have broken down Texas A&M and South Carolina or Georgia,
Florida. Yeah, that's like I better shut up because I just remembered
pretty much
how upset I was Saturday. So
Georgia Southern probably got beat too, didn't they?
I did not see the score of the Southern game.
Yeah, they're not really relevant. All right. Speaking of relevant teams, the Goose Creek Gators, Region 7 champions, are coming off that 30-27 win over Summerville. David Kennedy was the hero. Actually, 33-yard field goal to win it in OT. Big moment for that young man because he ran onto the field against Stratford with a chance to win it, and it didn't work out. Kick was no good. So nice to see him get a chance to redeem himself. Or, every kicker wants to be kick the game winner, and so he ran out there and it didn't happen against Stratford. It did against Summerville, so happy for that guy. Also for the Gators in that game, Demetri Simmons, a running back, fabulous running back by the way, probably the best in the low country. Dwayne Wright's pretty good too though, Fort Dorchester. 194 yards for Simmons, 2 touchdowns. Gabe Johnson came on the quarterback for the Gators. He's the backup, but he played like a starter. He had 2 touchdown passes to Kawuann Smith, who now has 8 touchdown grabs on the year. And Simmons is now over 1,200 yards rushing, and he has 9 touchdowns. The Gators are going to host Carolina Forest. The Gators are 5-2. Carolina Forest 6-1. This is a rematch of last year's state quarterfinal game in Myrtle Beach that was won by Carolina Forest. Last year the Panthers ran away from them. This year I think the Panthers have a really good football team again. The only time they've lost this year was to Sumter, which won the region, and that was an OT game, a la Clemson Notre Dame. The Panthers, really good offensive line, and they have an assortment of weapons, and they have a good system. Great coach, by the way, Mark Morris, and they average 43 points a game. So, looking at this one, I mean, the Gators, it's going to be a real tough matchup. It's at Goose Creek. Hopefully, they'll have some home field mojo working for them. And can deal with Carolina Forest, but that offense is pretty good. I think Goose Creek would need to be at full strength, unlike the Tigers against Notre Dame. Everybody stay healthy, and then I think the Gators defense really needs to minimize how many big plays they get up. If they do that, they'll be in the game, and I'm sure some of these Gators remember what it was like last year to lose at Carolina Forest in the third round of the playoffs. We mentioned Cane Bay. Cane Bay beat Ashley Ridge 13-10. Jayvion Johnson, the quarterback from Cane Bay, he scored on a 40-yard run, got out on the edge, and then it turned into like a 100-yard sprint. 100-meter sprint. Yeah, he's a sprinter. Excellent sprinter. I messed that all up. Anyway, he got out on the edge, and then he treated it like a sprinter in track and outran everybody to the house. He also threw a 26-yard touchdown pass to Leon Staley. Really nice fullback for the Cobras. It was 13-10. I don't know. They've played 15 times. Cobras have won 8. Ashley Ridge has won 7. Of the 15, I'm going to say 13. The other 13 have been decided by an average of probably between 6 and 7 points. So next year when they play, if you need a game to go see, it's going to be competitive. That's going to be the deal. They host Colleton County this Friday. I think I might have forgotten to mention that. The Cobras host Colleton County. They last played in 2016 and 17. Cane Bay won both of those games. Both teams are 3-4. The winner gets to end the season on a bit of a high note. I'm going to go with the Cobras in that one, and I'll save my Goose Creek Gators Carolina Forest pick for the very end as I think about who I'm going to pick. St. John's Christian is still alive. They in the playoffs on Friday night. They knocked off Calhoun Academy. That score was 39-22. It was 33-8 after 3 quarters, and it was just typical night for Nate Ryan, Bookert, the quarterback. It was, oh God, what is it? Michael's Secret Stuff. Cameraman, put that on the thing. That was a nice little deal there. Okay, from last week, if you watched, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Nate Ryan, he had 186 yards rushing, scored on touchdown runs of 29, 70, and 40 yards. He also threw 3 touchdown passes. That's hard to say. He hit Corey Moreau with 1, Hayden Redders caught 1, and Easton Morris for a touchdown. Moreau led the receivers with 5 catches for 105 yards. On defense for the Cavaliers, they had Jayden Bradley had 9 total tackles. Well, anyway, this Friday they hit the road to Lee Academy, which is 8-3. Very tough team. The winner of this game is going to take on either Thomas Hayward or Dylan Christian in the SCISA Class A State Championship in a game played where, Roger? Charleston Southern, right down the road. Charleston Southern. So if St. John's Christian can win here, they'll be able to come play for the championship at home. Thomas Hayward is a 2-time defending champion. Dylan Christian's pretty good football.
You're talking about this week. You're talking about the championship game will be at CSU?
Yes.
Okay.
St. John's is at Lee Academy, which is in Bishopville. Okay. So if they win that one, I mean, I understand I can be very confusing when I talk. I talk fast. I talk faster than Jayvion Johnson runs.
Wow, that's fast.
Yes. Anyway, so St. John's Christian has a chance to make it to the state championship game for the 2nd year in a row. Last year they made the 8-man championship game and lost to Andrew Jackson Academy. A couple other games I need to mention before the cameraman comes over here and drops the curtain on me. Berkeley 4-3 hitting the road to Sumter 6-0. As we mentioned, Sumter earlier was the only team to beat in Carolina Forest this year. Sumter's coming off a 28-9 win over Crestwood. The Stags are coming off a 57-32 loss to Fort Dorchester. To Berkeley's credit in that game, they were actually up 25-21. They were kind of in the fight, hitting Fort Dorchester with some haymakers. You know, they were bobbing and weaving, looking pretty good. And then Fort Dorchester just like, okay. And then they just kind of surged ahead and took control. In that game, quarterback Trey Minor connected with Solomon Butler for over 100 yards and passing, and Butler had a touchdown. Marion Mitchell also caught a touchdown for the Stags. Not to be outdone, the running back Luke Gadsden for Berkeley, he had over 100 yards rushing. He scored on a 3-yard run, and then he had an 87-yard touchdown run where he looked a lot like a sprinter. I mean, he was outrunning everybody. Actually, I think I got a pretty good shot of it. Reggie Campbell added the other touchdown run for Berkeley. So 57-32 loss to Fort Dorchester. Fort Dorchester is obviously very good, so nothing to really hang your head about. But as we talked about earlier about those last week's games, we talked about the emotional toll they could take, but also they could take a physical toll. Trey Minor left that game with a shoulder or collarbone problem, and he may not be able to play. I would say out, or at least doubtful for the game at Sumter. I'm assuming they'll turn that over to Waits Wilson, who cleaned up for him on Friday night. I really don't know a lot about that young man, but it would be tough for me to imagine that he knows the offense like Trey Minor does. Minor can read defenses, makes the right reads on where to throw the ball. Matter of fact, I think Randy Robinson said that Trey sometimes is a little too quick. So anyway, if Trey doesn't play, sorry to hear that. You hate to see a senior not get a chance to play his last game. Anyway, tough test for the Berkeley Stags. They're a proud program. They'll go to Sumter and give it all they got, and maybe they come back with an upset. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks in that one though. For the first, I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. The Sumter Gamecocks are going to win the football game, but hopefully Berkeley will.
I'll go with Berkeley then. Not despite you, but just because I think. But they're just so explosive. I think they'll get it done.
Did you miss the part where I said they're on a backup quarterback?
I saw that, but they've got their.
However, backup quarterbacks, DJ Uyunglele for Clemson.
Exactly.
He actually did torch the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It was the beat up defense that couldn't stop them. But in the ACC championship game,
I mean, it's the playoffs. Somebody has to get upset, right?
Yeah, hopefully. Well, I don't know. Should I say hopefully Sumter loses?
I think you could say that. Well,
All right, go Stags.
It's not hateful
Go Stags.
for Sumter. That's just they're out of our area, so
go
we don't
Stags,
care.
Yeah,
we don't care
whatever.
as much about them.
All right.
We don't want them to, we don't want any of them to get hurt or anything, but we don't necessarily want them to beat Berkeley.
I'm okay with the Gamecocks losing anytime. All right, Berkeley is at Sumter. We said that. Okay, Hanahan is at Dillon. Tough matchup for the Hawks. I almost said the Panthers, like the Dillon Panthers, like Friday Night Lights. It's actually the Wildcats. The Wildcats are undefeated. They have won 6 state championships since 2009. They have scored a ton of points this year. However, they've only played one team with a winning record, and that score, Dillon ended up winning the game 40-34. Not sure if it was an OT, but it was definitely a knockdown dragout. The Hawks have had a sensational season no matter what happens at Dillon on Friday. They were 1-8 last year. This year they're 5-1. They finished second in the region, Oceanside Collegiate, in a very winnable game. Hanahan was also off this past Friday. The previous Friday, they knocked off Phillip Simmons 21-7. And the new coach, Hanahan's new coach, Art Craig, he's familiar with Dillon. They played all the time when he was at Timberland. They played some really good games. So he knows what he's getting into. They have nothing to lose. Hanahan goes out there and plays exceptional on offense and can, get some breaks. The defensive unit can kind of get some breaks, come up with some turnovers. Maybe they're in the football game. But I do know this. I know that Dillon's probably the favorite and Dillon's probably going to win, but Hanahan's going to go down there and give it everything they got. And the cameraman's waving at me again.
It's not quite dark outside. I think you still got a little.
All right, one more team I want to mention. They don't play this Friday, but they just finished the regular season. Cross knocked off Lake Marion 34-18 on Friday. It was a nice way to go out for the Trojans. They went out on a high note. Everybody always wants to win their last game. It just makes you feel a little better. Yeah. Sophomore Jatavius Gaines put on a show for Cross. He scored a touchdown on the ground from 33 yards, and he had 2 others through the air from Caden White. Those covered 27 and 35 yards. He also added a 2-point conversion. Another big play was turned in by Tylik Green, who returned the kick 72 yards for a score. And Caleb Wright reached pay dirt on a 12-yard run for the Trojans offense. That accounted for their 34 points. Damian Haynes on defense led the Trojans with 10 tackles, and Santori Jones chipped in 9 stops. It was the final game for 6 Cross seniors, which means they bring back a good core of people next year. I think that pretty much just about does it for game-wise. I do want to mention our sponsor again, Tony Pope State Farm. Make sure you call Tony Pope State Farm for your car, home, life, and small business insurance. One more thing. We're inside the 2-minute warning, Rod. We need to mention our players of the week. Do you know your 2?
Maybe.
Or is your old age catching up with you?
Maybe by the time you get yours
Okay,
out,
I'm also going to stall here, but we have our player of the week voting coming up. It's on our websites. Make sure if you register and you vote, you can enter. You'll be entered to win a $500 gift card. And Roger and I are successfully stalling. Actually, we're just going to milk the clock. We're running it down.
Well, we've decided to do a little something special this year for Player of the Week, right?
Yes, right. We're going to do a regular Player of the Week voting coming up this week as normal, and then the following week we'll have. For next week it will be a regular Player of the Week voting because we have a full slate of games, and then the following week we're going to do a Player of the Year voting. Your Player of the Year voting. We'll probably pick 10 players from Berkeley and Dorchester counties, and you'll be able to vote for the winners. What would go down as the Player of the Year. And did you ever find your Players of the Week?
I did.
Thank you.
Our Players of the Week, Fort Dorchester, Zoltan Osborne, threw for 320 yards, I believe it was, 4 touchdowns. In the win over Berkeley. And then Caden DeBose, linebacker for Ashley Ridge, made 10 tackles, including 3 solo stops, and Ashley Ridge's loss to Cane Bay. Obviously, Summerville could have had it. We considered some from Summerville, but I haven't nominated that many Ashley Ridge Player of the Weeks this year, so I went ahead and picked an Ashley Ridge guy who had a fabulous night.
All right, I have 3 good ones again. Kawuann Smith, a receiver from Goose Creek, as we mentioned, he scored 2 touchdowns for the Gators. Jayvion Johnson, quarterback from Cane Bay. He scored on the 40-yard touchdown run and a 26-yard touchdown pass to Leon Staley. And Ryan Bookert, who pretty much could be the player of the week every week, just statistically wise. For the quarterback for St. John's Christian, I'm struggling today. 372 yards total, and he had 6 touchdowns total for the Cavaliers. So we are this is the end of week 8. We're heading into week 9 next week, and hopefully we'll have a lot of teams still left to talk about.
Hope so.
All right. See y'all next week.